Hello, Your Black World family. Hey, Breaking Brown family. And in the last couple of days, there has been a lot of discussion about LeBron James and Tamir Rice and what the role of LeBron James is, what the role of black athletes is, and should LeBron use his influence, use his prominence as a basketball player, as a national athlete, as an NBA player, as a nationally recognized athlete, to bring attention to Tamir Rice, to basically shut down, you know, the basketball team or whatever, to basically shut it down and say, I'm not going to play, I'm not going to do whatever until you all handle this, until we get indictments for the officers who gunned down the 12-year-old. And this kind of thing just kind of makes me cringe a little bit. Because what we see a lot of the time is that we see working class people and black poor people kind of reach their hand out to rich people, to rich black people, and say, why aren't you helping us? LeBron, why aren't you doing more? Oprah, why aren't you doing more? Can't Magic Johnson do something about X, Y, and Z? And we see this even in terms of businesses, right? You see people say, why aren't black businesses doing more to do X, Y, and Z? Or why aren't black millionaires? We have enough black millionaires to do X, Y, and Z. Why isn't that happening? And I just want to say one thing. I want to say two things. Let's start out with the first thing. The first thing is, and this undergirds the second thing, not all black people are the same. And when I say not the same, I'm not talking about how we look or how we present. What I'm saying is that we don't all occupy the same space, ideologically, economically, none of that. And let me give you an example. Right now, you have a lot of fast food workers, you have a lot of disproportionately black workers, disproportionately Latino workers who are calling for a raise in the minimum wage at fast food restaurants. You have other people like, let's say, Magic Johnson, who I know at the time, I don't know if he still does, own McDonald's franchises. Magic Johnson may not want to see an increase in the minimum wage because that increases his costs in terms of doing business. Whereas the black minimum wage worker wants to see an increase in minimum wage because he's not making enough to eat. He's not making enough to live. He can work 40 hours a week and he doesn't make enough to pay rent and pay a car note and feed his family or feed her family. So the point I'm trying to make here is that these are two black people who are very much opposed in terms of the kind of legislation they would probably want to see passed. Now, I'm not saying that this is Magic Johnson's position. I don't know his position. What I'm saying, I'm just using this as a hypothetical to show you that black people are not all in the same boat here. And we have to stop thinking, and this brings me to my second point, that you have to stop looking to rich black people, like working class black people and poor black people have to stop looking to rich black people to save them from racism or to save them from how racism functions in a capitalist society. Because LeBron James is very successful in this capitalist society. He's not at the bottom of the totem pole. And I'm not saying anything bad about LeBron. I think LeBron has done some good things in terms of charity. So please don't mistake this as a teardown of LeBron James. I'm not saying that at all. What I am doing is acknowledging his place in the capitalistic system. I am acknowledging his place on the totem pole, and he's very high up. So he's not going to risk that. A person who makes this amount of money from a corporation is not going to risk all of that for what you're calling on him to do. He's not going to do that. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what has to happen is that the people who are most impacted by what's happening, which is usually poor people, is you see an increase. You're more likely to get harassed by the police as a poor white person than a black person who earns over $200,000 a year or lives in a family over $200,000 a year. So you have to get together with people who are like you. If you look at Tamir Rice, even if you look at Michael Brown, you look at a lot of these black kids. You look at Laquan McDonald. A lot of these black kids who have been slaughtered by police. These are poor black kids. These aren't black kids in rich neighborhoods. These aren't kids of stars or famous people. For the most part, these are poor working class these kids are from poor working class families. And what has to happen is that poor working class families have to get together and do something about this. LeBron is not going to do anything about this. Now he will go and he will offer charity, and that I think that is commendable in terms of paying for kids to go to school and that sort of thing. But he's not in charge of your revolution. He's not in charge of your liberation. And charity can't do everything. You know, you hear a lot of people say, well, you know, we have these GoFundMe's accounts, we have these charities now, you know, charity can really pave the way. Listen, charity is not a vehicle for uplift of anybody. Charity is just not that thing. Charity, there's not enough money. There's not enough black people with money. There's some very good data on how few black people, and I will post the article, actually, I think in the YouTube section. Because a friend of mine, somebody who I've done a YouTube video, he actually put together and spoke about the data in terms of the black people who make above a certain amount. I think it was like 350K. They're not a lot. There's not enough money to do all of that. So if you're looking for some type of like actual change in the system, if you're looking to actually move things, you don't need to look to LeBron or Oprah or Magic or anybody else. That kind of thing has to come from the ground up. That kind of thing has to come from the bottom up. You know, LeBron's kids LeBron's kids and most of the kids, you know, who are from rich, wealthy black families, however few of them there are not the ones who are being killed in the street. So you have to stop this idea that all black people are the same and that because we're black, we have the same racial collective and we should all want the same things and we do all want the same things, because that's just not true. And to get caught up in that is to get caught up in something that's just going to lead you down a dead end, because the most you're going to get from these people is charity. Oprah gave money to Morehouse. Wonderful, but that's not a vehicle for uplift. If you want real systemic change, it has to come from the bottom. It has to come from the ground up. And so I just think people should kind of think about that when you're calling on LeBron James to bring about change. What about you? What about the people who live in your community? What about you know, activists in that community that you could be supporting? There are activists in a lot of community that don't get nearly the support that they need. So I would just like us to see us support those activists who are on the ground, who are doing good work, as opposed to trying to call on LeBron James to do something that he's never going to do.